Hello. It's good to see you. Today we are going to be reading some more recipes from Grandpa's, little play on words there, little cookbook. And this cookbook has pictures of dogs in it. There's some of the pets of people who contributed recipes to the book. Now, last time, I believe we read some recipes for sauces. This time, we're going to be reading recipes for cakes and frostings. And this little darling here is named Katie, little puppy there, very cute. Yeah, last time we were reading sauce recipes. But at the beginning, they give you some helpful information. I really like cookbooks that do this. They don't all do it. We have some illustrations of common baking dishes and pans, just to give you an idea of what some of the different pans look like. You have your spring form pan, a layer cake or a pie pan, a ring mold there, a baking or a square pan, a loaf pan, a brioche pan, an angel cake pan, and a bundt tube. I've heard it called a bundt pan. I've never heard it called a bundt tube. And they also give you equivalent dishes, like if you don't have the exact size of the one in the recipe, maybe you can see the conversion here. And the total volume of pans, we have tube pans, spring form pans, ring molds, and a brioche pan. It's very useful, especially since we're in the cakes and frosting section, so that's why they have this here for you. Here we have a recipe that doesn't have many ingredients at all. This is called the Apple Hill Cake. And you're going to combine these 4 ingredients. 2 cups of sugar, 1/3 of a cup of oil, any kind of oil you want, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And you add 4 cups of diced apples, mixed variety. Sift together and add to apple mixture the following 5 ingredients: 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. And now, after you've combined everything, you pour it into a greased 9 by 13 inch pan. Bake for 1 hour at 350 degrees, or use 4 mini bundt pans and reduce to 325 degrees and bake for about 35 minutes. That sounds really simple and really good. And then we have Betty's pound cake. I love pound cake, just plain old pound cake. For this recipe, you're going to need 3 cups of sugar, 1 cup of real butter, no fake butter, but you also need 1/2 cup of margarine. That's interesting. 5 eggs, 3 cups of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 cup of milk. It doesn't say what kind of milk, just whatever you want. Cream, butter, and sugar and margarine together very thoroughly. Add eggs 1 at a time, beating well after each egg. Add all remaining ingredients at one time and beat very well. Grease and flour tube pan. Put in cold oven. This is very important. Bake at 325 degrees for 1 hour and 20 minutes or until done. Serve plain with powdered sugar or frost. Freezes well. wonder if that hour and 20 minutes includes the time it takes the oven to heat up to 325, because it says you need to put it in when the oven's cold. I guess we'll never know because I have no idea who Betty is and I don't know how to ask her. Okay. Bourbon pound cake. For this one we have more ingredients, but it looks like the instructions are pretty simple. For the bourbon pound cake, you will need 3 sticks of margarine softened, 3 cups of sugar, 3 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of cloves, half a teaspoon of allspice, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1½ cups of milk, 1 cup of chopped fresh apples, 1 cup of crushed black walnuts, 5 eggs, and ½ cup of bourbon. Cream, butter, and eggs until smooth. Add eggs 1 at a time, beating after each. Add bourbon to apples and nuts. Let stand. Sift all dry ingredients. Alternately add with milk to creamed mixture. Fold in nuts, apples, and bourbon. Grease 10-inch tube pan and bake at 350 degrees for 1½ hours. Wow, that one has to bake for quite a while. Now let's see what we have here. Ooh, this sounds good. Caramel cake. Okay, for the caramel cake, you're going to need the following. 1 18½ ounce package of Duncan Hines butter golden cake, 1 8-ounce carton of sour cream, ½ cup of Crisco oil, not the shortening, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1/4 cup of water, and 4 eggs. And for the caramel icing, you need 3 cups of granulated sugar, 2 sticks of butter, no substitute, 3/4 cup of whipping cream, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Blend ingredients up here at high speed for 2 minutes. Pour into 3 greased cake pans and bake at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Cool and frost with caramel icing. And to make the caramel icing, you brown ½ cup of sugar in a small skillet. Combine remaining sugar, butter, and cream and bring to a boil. Add brown sugar and continue cooking until mixture reaches soft ball stage. Remove from heat. Add vanilla and cool. Spread between layers and on top and sides of cake. Well, that sounds really good. And over here we have a cheesecake supreme. Cheesecake. We have ingredients for the crust. This is very simple. You need 1½ cups of graham crackers, 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1/4 cup of butter. Combine cracker crumbs, sugar, and butter. Press mixture into bottom and sides of 10-inch springform pan. And then we have the ingredients for the cheesecake. 5 8-ounce packages of cream cheese softened, 1 3/4 cups of sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 6 eggs. Cream the cream cheese. Add sugar and sour cream. Add eggs 1 at a time, beating well. Add flour, salt, and vanilla. Pour into crust-lined pan. Bake at 500 degrees for 10 minutes. Reduce heat to 200 degrees and bake 1 hour longer. I've never heard of doing one that way. That's interesting. Remove from oven and refrigerate. Arrange fruit of choice on chilled cake. And then we have a glaze for this. For the glaze, you need 1 cup of pineapple juice, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1½ tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and 2 tablespoons of cold water. To make a glaze, combine pineapple juice, lemon juice, and sugar. Mix cornstarch in cold water and add to fruit juices. Cook until thickened and pour over fruit. Very nice. And then we have a little recipe here for cherry coffee cake. Oh, this sounds good. A cherry coffee cake. Looks pretty easy. You need 1 cup of Oleo, 1 3/4 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 4 eggs, 3 cups of sifted flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 large can of cherry pie filling. Preheat oven to 350 degrees. Cream Oleo, sugar, and vanilla. Add eggs 1 at a time and beat well after each. Add remaining ingredients except pie filling. Oh, there's a little bit. I figured there had to be more. Just a little more here. Spread half of mixture on a well-greased cookie sheet. Spread pie filling over the mixture. Spread rest of dough over filling. Bake at 350 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. While hot, drizzle with a powdered sugar icing. Well, that does sound good. And we have a recipe here just for chocolate cake, which is good anytime. For this chocolate cake, you're going to need 3 1-ounce squares of unsweetened chocolate, 1 stick of butter, no substitute, 2½ cups of firmly packed brown sugar, which is 1 box plus 1/4 cup, 3 eggs, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 1/4 cups of cake flour sifted, 1/2 cup of buttermilk, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 1 cup of boiling water. Preheat oven to 375 degrees. All of these temperatures are in Fahrenheit. Grease 2 round cake pans and line with wax paper. Melt chocolate, cream, butter, and sugar. Then add eggs and melted chocolate. Stir in salt and baking soda. Alternately add flour and buttermilk, vanilla, and thin boiling water. Bake for 45 minutes or until cake tester comes out clean. Check after 30 minutes. And for the frosting, you're going to need 2 cups of whipping cream, 1/3 cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and chocolate shavings for garnish. Mix ingredients together and chill for at least 2 hours. Whip cream mixture and frost cool cake. Top with chocolate shavings and store in refrigerator. That sounds like a yummy cake. We also have a recipe. This is interesting. It's for cupcake brownies. I love cupcakes and brownies, so I'm interested. For the cupcake brownies, you will need 4 squares of semi-sweet chocolate, 2 sticks of butter or margarine, 1 cup of all-purpose flour unsifted, 1 3/4 cups of sugar, 4 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 2 cups of chopped pecans, and that's optional. Melt chocolate and butter in double boiler or in microwave oven. In large mix and store pitcher, mix flour and sugar by hand, and then add eggs. Add eggs one at a time, stirring as little as possible. Stir in vanilla and chocolate mixture. Add pecans if desired. 2 cups, that's a lot. Pour into baking cups in muffin tins. Bake at 325 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Makes 24 cupcakes. So I guess they're just brownies and a cupcake. Interesting. And down here we have a fruit cake, and it's not a picture of me, it's an actual recipe. For the fruit cake, you will need 2 cups of butter, 3 cups of sugar, 6 eggs, 6 cups of flour, wow, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of mixed spices, 1 cup of wine or light sherry, 2 quarts of pecans broken, 1½ pounds of white raisins, 1½ pounds of candied pineapple pieces, and 1½ pounds of candied cherries in pieces. Flour fruit with part of flour, cream, butter, and sugar. Add eggs one at a time, beating after each one. Add sifted dry ingredients. Alternate with wine. You're probably going to need some wine. This cake, I don't like fruit cake. Fold in pecans, raisins, and fruit. Pour into loaf pans 3, greased lightly and lined with brown paper. Bake 3½ hours at 250 degrees. Pour a little sherry over cake while hot. Store in tin with sherry soaked cloth. That's a fruit cake. Let's see. Ooh, what is this? We have a recipe for something called an inside-out chocolate cake. What on earth is that? To make an inside-out chocolate cake, you need 1 box of Duncan Hines Devil's Food Cake Mix, 2 eggs, 1½ cups of milk, 1 small box of instant chocolate pudding, and 1 12-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Grease and flour bundt pan or tube pan. Mix all ingredients by hand until all dry ingredients are blended well. Batter will be thick. Spoon batter into bundt pan. Cook for 60 minutes at 350 degrees. Do not overcook. Cool in pan for 20 minutes. Remove to plate. Sift powdered sugar on top of cool cake or frost with inside-out frosting. See frostings. Well, I'm going to go find the inside-out frosting. I want to see what that is. Well, I found an inside-out icing. I think that must be what they meant. To make inside-out icing, make chocolate icing by melting semi-sweet chips over low heat until smooth and gradually stir in sifted powdered sugar. Stir until smooth. Remove from heat and add vanilla flavoring to taste. May substitute almond flavor if you prefer. So that's the icing for the inside-out cake. And next we have a Mississippi mud cake. I've never made one of these. To make the Mississippi mud cake, you need 2 sticks of butter, 1/2 cup of cocoa, 2 cups of sugar, 4 eggs slightly beaten, 1 1/4 cups of self-rising flour, a pinch of salt, 1½ teaspoons of vanilla, 1½ cups of walnuts. And this is for the frosting. These 6 ingredients. For the frosting you need 1 pound of confectioner's sugar, ½ a cup of milk, ½ a cup of cocoa, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, that's optional, ½ a cup of chopped nuts, which is also optional, and ½ a stick of margarine. Melt butter and cocoa together and remove from heat. Stir in sugar and eggs, plural. Mix well. Add flour, nuts, and vanilla. Mix well. Pour in a 9½ by 13-inch pan. Bake at 350 degrees for 35 to 45 minutes. Mix frosting ingredients until smooth. When removed from oven, cover the top of cake with miniature marshmallows immediately. Pour frosting on top of marshmallows. Well, doesn't that sound good? We should make that sometime. That sounds really good. And then we have an orange pound cake. I've never had orange pound cake. To make the orange pound cake, you need 3 cups of sugar, 3 cups of flour, 2 sticks of margarine, ½ a cup of Crisco, 2 teaspoons of lemon flavoring, 1 teaspoon of orange flavoring, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, ½ a teaspoon of salt, 4 eggs, 1 cup of milk. Cream Crisco, margarine, and sugar. Add eggs and mix well. Sift flour, salt, and baking powder. Blend in with milk and flavorings. Put into cold oven, then turn on to 325 degrees for 1½ hours. Do not open until done. Well, that sounds simple. And we have a recipe for an overnight coffee cake. I guess you have to refrigerate some stuff. Let's see. For the overnight coffee cake, you need 2/3 of a cup of Oleo, ½ a cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of white sugar, 2 eggs, 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 cup of buttermilk, 1 teaspoon of salt, and ½ a cup of nuts. Cream, sugars, and Oleo. Add eggs and beat well. Put in a 9 by 13-inch greased and floured pan. Sprinkle brown sugar and nuts over dough. Cover with foil and refrigerate overnight. Remove foil and bake in a preheated 350-degree oven for 30 minutes or until done. Serve warm. Well, that's a nice little recipe too. Nice little cinnamon flavor to it. Let's see what else we have. Here we have a recipe for a sour cream coconut pound cake. Oh my goodness. Sour cream coconut pound cake. For this recipe, you will need the following things. 3 cups of sugar, 2 sticks of butter softened at room temperature, 6 eggs, 3 cups of sifted cake flour, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and 1 tablespoon of coconut flavoring. Preheat oven to 325 degrees. Cream butter and sugar in a large mixing bowl. Add eggs one at a time and beat well. Sift together the flour, salt, and baking soda. and add to the butter, sugar, egg mixture alternately with sour cream, starting with the flour and ending with flour, and beat until well blended. Add flavorings. Cut parchment paper and place in the bottom of a tube pan. Do not put paper or grease the sides of the pan. Pour batter into tube pan and bake for 1 hour and 15 minutes to 1 hour and 30 minutes until a tester put in the center comes out clean. Let cake sit for 10 minutes. Run a knife between the cake and the pan to loosen the sides. Then turn the cake out on serving plate. Frost with buttercream frosting if desired. And this is the buttercream frosting. For this you will need 1 16-ounce package of 10x confectioner's sugar, 6 tablespoons of milk, 1/2 of a cup of Crisco shortening, 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring, and 1 teaspoon of coconut flavoring. Mix sugar, Crisco, and milk together using a high speed on an electric mixer. Add flavorings. Adjust milk until desired consistency. So that is the sour cream coconut pound cake. I was kind of hoping there'd actually be some coconut in it, but it's just coconut flavoring. Okay. And then we have something called a Southern Lane cake. I don't know what in the world. Oh, apparently this is an item. I've never heard of this. Okay, these are the ingredients for this cake. You need 2/3 of a cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 5 egg whites, 3 cups of sifted cake flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, 1/2 cup of milk, 1/2 cup of water, 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla, and Southern Lane cake filling. I don't know, I've never heard of that. And 7-minute frosting. I'm going to have to look that up. I've never heard of that. Cream butter. Gradually add sugar and continue creaming until light and fluffy. That's what she said. Add unbeaten egg whites one at a time, beating with each addition. Sift flour and baking powder together several times. Alternately add flour with milk to which vanilla has been added and water. Bake at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Fill with Southern Lane cake filling. Oh, see frostings. Frost with 7-minute frostings. We're going to look up the Southern Lane cake filling. I thought it was something you had to buy, but apparently you can make it. So let's go look at that. Okay, I found the Southern Lane cake filling. Look, it's Collie Ann. Look at this dog. The Southern Lane cake filling. Okay, so we could make this. To make this, you need 1 cup of sugar, 8 egg yolks, 1 stick of butter, 1 1/2 cups of chopped raisins, 2 cups of chopped pecans, 1 small wine glass of bourbon, and 1 cup of fresh dry coconut, but that's optional. Beat egg yolks with sugar. Add butter. Cook in a double boiler until thick. Add raisins, nuts, and bourbon. Cool. Spread between layers of Southern Lane cake. And then we also have the 7-minute frosting, which is right here. For the 7-minute frosting, you need 2 unbeaten egg whites, 1 1/2 cups of sugar, finely sifted, 5 tablespoons of cold water, 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar, or 2 teaspoons of light corn syrup, a few grains of salt. It's not even a pinch. Few grains of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Combine ingredients except vanilla in top of double boiler. Stir until sugar dissolves. Place over briskly boiling water and beat with egg beater until stiff enough to stand up in peaks about 6 minutes. Remove from heat. Add vanilla. Beat until thick enough to spread. Let stand a few minutes. Spread on cool layers. So that is your 7-minute frosting. And then the last recipe we have for today is called an ugly cake. Now I've heard of ugly cakes, but there are different recipes for ugly cakes. For this ugly cake, you need 1 box of yellow cake mix, 1 cup of chopped nuts, 1 stick of butter or margarine, 2 8-ounce packages plus 1 3-ounce package of cream cheese, 2 cups of confectioner's sugar. That doesn't sound too ugly to me. It actually sounds pretty good. I guess it just looks ugly. I don't know. Prepare cake mix according to package directions and pour into greased and floured 9 by 13-inch pan. Sprinkle chopped nuts on top. Melt butter or margarine and mix with cream cheese and confectioner's sugar. Mix until fluffy. Spread over cake mix. Cut in with knife to mix in with batter. Bake at 350 degrees for 50 to 60 minutes. Cake will be slightly soft in center. Yields 20 to 24 squares. That actually sounds good. I don't know why it would be ugly. I kind of think we should make that. I want to do the Mississippi mud cake and the ugly cake. I may have to mark that for another day. That actually sounds really good, but also really easy. So that is the last recipe for today. We took a look at some different cake recipes. I really like this one. The sour cream coconut pound cake sounds good too. We got to see some good ones today. Yummy cakes. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed listening to these nice little cake recipes and also a couple of recipes for frostings and fillings. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon.